All right, welcome back on the Bordas and Bordas hotline of the Sports Call. Bob Pompeani with you until 11 o'clock at 412-575-2600. Call. A lot of people have done that, so let's get right to it. Eric in Brookville is first up tonight. Eric, go right ahead.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, just checking on, I kind of want your opinion on the Malkin status. Just the information I get through your program and Sport Networks, saying he practiced. He was with the.
Yeah, he looked good.
Yeah. What's your take on that? Are we just kind of holding out? Is this maybe a strategy with kind of mixing up lines with the Capitals, or is this something that's legitimately out?
No, I think they would be sincere about their own beliefs on this. I do believe, he practiced yesterday. He looked good to go, and Mike Sullivan said he was encouraged by it. But if we choose to play him, it made it sound like they might not, but then we kind of wrote that off. I think if he doesn't play Tuesday, then this is a little bit worse than what we're led to believe. And I got to believe it's a hyperextended knee. He's capable of skating, but is he capable of skating competitively in one of these kind of grueling games? And maybe he's not ready for that. I don't know. Or maybe he just wasn't close enough at 100%. They didn't want to risk him knowing they had a 1-0 series lead. It could be any of that. In the meantime, and thanks for the call, Eric, appreciate that, they need better performances from Derek Brassard and, quite frankly, Phil Kessel. For as much as we laud Kessel with all his praise when he's doing well, and he's been terrific ever since he got here, but in these sort of series, he needs to have a better mark on this series. And so far in 2 games, he has not. Brassard needs to do that as well. Those guys need to step up. That's why they're here. Specifically Brassard. He was brought in to be a difference maker in the playoffs. That's what his history suggested, and he still very well may be, and I believe he will be, but so far we have not seen that. So I'm not sure, we'll find out. I'm more concerned at this point about Brian Dumoulin, because that looked like potentially another concussion. We haven't heard much about Hagelin, who did not make the trip, so all of a sudden now if Dumoulin's out, that really hurts your defense. He, along with Ole Mata, have been, I think, the 2 most consistent players on that blue line all season long. Bill in Greensbury. What's up, Bill? How are you?
Hey, Bobby. How you doing, bud?
All right. What's your take?
2 quick comments, and I want to hear your opinion on it. I think Malkin looked good the day before, and I understand the gentleman stole my thunder a little bit, but if you're in the World Series or in a Super Bowl and you're 80% ready to go, you play. I think they baby him too much. I think he's a bit of a baby, and I think he should have played.
What do you base that on? What do you base that on?
I was watching him fly across the ice and smiling and laughing and shooting the puck. He looked like he.
That doesn't mean his knee is good enough to go.
What's his name last year played with a broken leg.
I never question a toughness of one of those guys. I think Evgeny Malkin has displayed extreme toughness. He's played with a lot of things too. If his knee is not capable of holding up under a duress of an actual game, a playoff game, and they make that decision, that's fine. Just because he's skating doesn't mean he's ready to return.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I don't totally disagree with that, but I don't know. I've seen players play with a lot more serious injury play. My second point I wanted to make, and I wanted your comment on this. Greg Braun said in the 7th inning when the kid was pitching a perfect game, if he gets up to 110 pitches in the 8th inning, Hurdle will definitely pull him. I mean, come on, that's absolutely ridiculous. His arm's not going to fall off if he throws an extra 15 pitches.
How do you know?
Your comment on that?
Well, I would lean to what you're saying there, but if it was a perfect game, I'd have to roll with him all the way through, as long as he told me he was okay. Now, keep in mind, this is the same guy who had Tommy John surgery, and even though his arm is, he says, better than it's ever been, you have to be mindful of that. And pitch counts that he's had in AAA didn't approach to what he was doing today. And if it went to 110, I think he might be pushing it. Although, if he had a perfect game, I would not take him out there. Unless he told me he was really laboring and it was going to hurt him. 412-575-2600. Let's go out to Tim in South Park. Hey, Tim, how are you?
Hey, Bob. Hear me out for a second here. Very difficult to watch the game today. I know Penn's back-to-back Cup champs. How many times are we watching the Penguin players getting blown up on the ice? All I saw today was Penguin players falling, getting blown up, getting busted up, and we do nothing about it. I know we have scores. I know it's almost like the ice capades out there, fancy skating. But the Philadelphia beat us up. Washington is beating us up. We need some physicality to respond to these. What do we have? 3 players?
Let me ask you this, Tim. Who won the Philadelphia series?
I understand, Bob. I understand all that. And we lost Hagelin and Malkin. Today we lose Dumoulin.
Okay.
How many more times are we going to lose players until somebody stands up to this?
What do you want them to do at that point? I think the league needs to be the one that stands up to them, and when something like that happens, they have to step in. I think they should have called a penalty on that play. I understand what you're saying, and they do not have people other than Oleksiak, really, who are going to go back at people. But the last thing you want to do if you're Mike Sullivan is start getting retaliatory penalties, and that's one thing he's been good about keeping his team from doing. You don't want to be sitting 4 guys in the box, and it turns into 2012 all over again. I don't have a problem. I have a problem with their start today. I don't think the physicality affects them. I really don't.
Oh, well, we're losing players. No, Philadelphia didn't lose any players. Washington hasn't lost any.
Philadelphia's lost 3 players in that series, and Washington lost Andre Burakovsky because he took a hit too. I mean, the physical part of the game exists. Those guys are pretty good about dealing with it. I'm just saying, if you want them to respond in kind, they'll end up in the penalty box. And that's a pretty good power play that's operating at 33% in the playoffs in Washington. So you got to be careful.
Okay. It's okay. I understand it's okay to hit a player on the ice and not take a penalty like they have done. We haven't done that.
They've done that. Washington dictated. I totally agree with that. But I also think the Penguins are capable of returning it without crossing the line. You can't cross the line. All right, let's go out to Harry Colliers. What's up, Harry? How you doing?
Hey, Bobby, Harry here. Hey, I know we've been complaining about the Pens getting off to a slow start, but don't you think that's kind of our game? And
no,
we always got the ability to come back.
What kind of game is that? You can't roll the dice like that.
I'm talking about the officials now. That was the worst game I've seen. Now, if you want to watch a good game, Nashville and the Sharks are going at it now.
No,
but anyway,
the Jets.
Them 2 calls at the end of the game, they took that goal from us. They didn't call the interference. That Letang penalty. They had so many other penalties that they could have called.
Listen, Harry, I'm not going to get into officiating every night here because everyone calls with that same problem. They have to fight through that. They have to do what they have to do. Officiating did not cost them the game. What cost them the game is they started badly. They could not match what they knew was going to be a desperate Washington team, and they couldn't match it. They fell behind again. You can tell me all you want about how good they are coming from behind. Yes, they are. But how many times do you want to be forced with that scenario? You don't, especially 3-0. Let's go out to David. Finleyville. Hey, David, how you doing?
Fine, thanks, Bob. Thanks for taking my call. I have a quick question. How many games do you think they're going to give Wilson for that dirty hit?
1.
Thanks.
I would hope they give 1. They may not give any because their history sometimes suggests they don't, but I think he deserves 1. Howie in Vanport. Welcome to the Sports Call. Howie, how are you?
Okay, Bob. I enjoy your show.
Thank you.
That goal tonight reminds me of when Jesse James didn't get his touchdown.
Well, there's a difference there, if you really want to talk about it. The difference is Jesse James's call was according to the rule. The rule sucks, and they changed the rule.
Yeah.
But the call on the field per the rule was technically the right call, even though everyone knew that was a catch. And now they've modified it so that under the new rule, that would have been a touchdown. So, yes, it's almost like getting an apology from the NFL. This case, this is strictly video replay. If you have replay and you have the ability to zoom in, which they do, and all you have to do, I have a picture on my Twitter line as well, you'll see it crossed the line. So how could you not overturn that call? Also,
I'm amazed at the Pirates this year.
So far, so good.
They are doing great.
Well, here's the thing with the Pirates, and thanks for the call, Howie. Appreciate that. If you get performances from people you didn't expect along the way, this is something that really hasn't happened with the Pirates. If Kingham turns out to be what they thought he could be when they drafted him 7 years ago, 8 years ago actually, that's great. Now, all of a sudden, you got a guy who you hope to be that. If Austin Meadows, for example, can blossom right before our eyes quickly, all of a sudden that changes that dynamic. I think Trevor Williams has been really terrific. I think, generally speaking, Tyler Glasnow is another one. He's in their bullpen, and he could very well, he's showing me confidence. He's showing me he has control, which was his thing for the last 2 years. He was wild, looked overmatched at times, but now you know, if this stuff starts coming together, it changes the dynamic of the team. And the hitting has been spectacular. I give Neil Huntington a lot of credit for making that swap of salaries. Daniel Hudson, he got rid of that dead weight, and he brought in Corey Dickerson. And I'm surprised Tampa would have let him go. He's coming off an all-star season, same $6 million price tag. So it didn't cost the Pirates anything extra. They just got rid of one $6 million tab, and they brought in another. So they're doing all the right things right now. Let's see how far it can go because the competition will get better, although they just swept St. Louis, and they did it rather systematically, and they took that team apart. That's good news. And we'll take a break, come back with more right here. Give us a call, 412-575-2600.